My parents skipped my master's graduation for my sister's spa day. A year later, they begged me to plan her college send-off at her dream venue. They never imagined the party I'd throw, or that they wouldn't be on the guest list. This is where the story truly begins, and you won't want to miss what happens. Make sure you're subscribed to see it through to the end. We're always curious. Where in the world are you all watching from today? Let us know in the comments. The fever broke sometime during the commencement speaker's drone about building the future. Ironic, considering I was about to graduate with a master's in architecture, and my own foundation felt like it was crumbling. I was sick. Not just a little under the weather, but full-blown, 102-degree fever, coughing so hard my ribs ached sick. I had spent the last 48 hours alternating between mainlining vitamin C packets and putting the finishing touches on my final portfolio, a sleepless, delirious blur that had culminated in this. Me, sitting in the third row of graduates, trying not to pass out in my rented cap and gown. But the physical misery was a dull throb compared to the ache of the empty seats. Section 12, Row G, seats 14, 15, and 16. I had taped the tickets to the refrigerator myself 2 months ago. My mother, Margaret, had said, "Oh, Alina, how wonderful, we wouldn't miss it for the world." My father, David, had nodded over his newspaper. My sister, Chloe, had glanced up from her phone long enough to ask if the stadium had good Wi-Fi. Now those seats gaped at me. 3 patches of empty blue plastic in a sea of cheering, beaming families. I'd tried to call them that morning. My parents' phones went straight to voicemail. Chloe's rang once, then disconnected. I'd sent a text, "Ceremony starts at 10, I'm so nervous, can't wait to see you." No reply. At first, I'd made excuses. Traffic, there must have been terrible traffic, or maybe Dad's car broke down. Yes, that was it. They were probably stressed and frantic, trying to get to me. But as the procession began, as we filed into the stadium, a colder, heavier feeling settled in my stomach. They weren't just late. They weren't coming. The flu, the exhaustion, the stress of my finals, it all paled in comparison to the sting of that realization. I had worked so hard for this. My parents had always been different with me and Chloe. I was the capable one, the responsible one. Chloe was the sensitive one, the golden child who needed protecting, coddling, and constant, expensive validation. I was the one who got a part-time job to pay for my own drafting supplies in undergrad. Chloe was the one who got a new BMW for her 16th birthday. I was the one who stayed home from a study-abroad trip to help my dad recover from a minor surgery. Chloe and my mother were the ones who went to Paris 2 weeks later to cheer him up from the stress of it all. I was the one who understood. I was always the one who had to understand. But this felt different. This was a milestone, a master's degree. I was the first person in our immediate family to get one. I juggled a brutal internship with a full course load, partly to make sure I could afford my own rent, because I knew every spare dollar at home was funneled toward Chloe's potential. Her competitive cheerleading, her private tutors, her ever-expanding designer wardrobe. Elena Russo. My name snapped me back to reality. My row was standing. It was time. I pushed myself to my feet, my legs shaking from both fever and adrenaline. I walked toward the stage, my eyes scanning that empty row one last time. Nothing, just a void. I shook the dean's hand, accepted the diploma tube, and smiled for a camera I knew my family wouldn't be buying prints from. The applause from my classmates was a roar, but the silence from those 3 empty seats was deafening. As I walked back, a wave of dizziness hit me. I fumbled for my phone, desperate for any explanation. A flat tire, a family emergency, anything but the truth I was starting to fear. My phone buzzed in my hand, a new message from Mom. My fingers, slick with sweat, almost dropped the phone. I clicked it open, a wave of desperate, foolish relief washing over me. They had tried to reach me. It was a picture message. My mother and my sister, Chloe, they were beaming, faces flushed and happy. They were wearing thick, white terry cloth robes, their hair wrapped in matching towels. Behind them, a sign etched in frosted glass read, Tranquility Woods Spa and Resort. The text beneath the photo read, Sorry, honey, Chloe needed this girl's weekend before her finals. She was just so stressed. We'll celebrate you later. Zoxa. I stared at the message. I read it once, twice, a third time. The words swam before my eyes, blurring with the bright, artificial green of the spa's logo. And needed. So stressed. Her finals. Chloe was a freshman in college. Her finals were in 2 weeks. My graduation, the culmination of 6 years of higher education, of late nights hunched over drafting tables, of sacrificing and saving and earning, was today. Right now. I looked at their smiling faces, their cucumbers on the eyes, no cares in the world happiness. They weren't frantic. They weren't in traffic. They hadn't even forgotten. They had made a choice. They had chosen a spa weekend over my graduation. A dry, racking cough tore through me, and it felt like it was ripping something loose inside. It wasn't just phlegm. It was the last, tattered thread of the illusion I'd clung to for 23 years. The illusion that capable meant loved. The illusion that if I just worked hard enough, achieved enough, and asked for nothing, I would one day be enough. Standing there in my cap and gown, coughing into a crumpled tissue as the ceremony ended around me, I realized the betrayal was far colder than the fever. And it was a cold that I knew, deep in my bones, I would never, ever forget. The congratulations from my classmates and professors felt like they were happening underwater. Everyone was hugging their families, taking pictures, making dinner reservations. I just smiled, nodded, and eased my way through the crowd, my diploma tube clutched in my hand like a baton. My only goal was to get back to my apartment and collapse. My roommate, Sarah, who had her own family in town, took one look at me and her face fell. Elena, you look awful, and where are they? I didn't have to say who they were. I just shook my head, my throat too tight to form words. The spa photo was still burning on my phone screen. I couldn't even bring myself to show her. It felt too humiliating. Oh, Elena, she said, pulling me into a hug that I leaned into more than I meant to. Go, get in bed. I'll text you later. I nodded, grateful, and fled. Back in my small, sun-filled apartment, I threw the diploma on my desk, stripped off the gown that now felt like a costume, and fell into bed, still in my dress. The fever, the exhaustion, and the emotional gut punch formed a toxic cocktail that knocked me out cold. I woke up hours later to a dark room and a throbbing head. My phone was a blinking constellation of notifications. Texts from friends, congrats, grad, party tonight, you did it. And one missed call, from Mom. A bitter, metallic taste filled my mouth. I let it ring, and again. On the third try, I finally picked up my voice hoarse. Hello. Elena, honey, we've been trying you. My mother's voice was breezy, as if she were calling to chat about the weather. Did you have a nice day? I graduated, Mom, I said, the words flat and heavy. I know, we're so proud. Listen, the service here is just awful. We've been in the mud baths all afternoon. Chloe was hilarious. She said she felt like a hippo. Margaret laughed, a bright, tinkling sound that made my teeth ache. You missed it, I said. There was a pause. The breeziness faltered just for a second. Well, yes, honey, I explained. Chloe was just at her wit's end. This freshman year has been so hard on her, and with finals, you know how she gets. You're so capable, you've always handled pressure so well, we knew you'd understand. I knew you'd understand. The family motto. The dagger that was always twisted with a smile. I had a fever of 102, I whispered. I was sick. Oh goodness, see, you probably shouldn't have even been there, all those germs. Well, you get some rest. We'll be back tomorrow and we'll take you out for a big dinner to celebrate. Your pick. Mom, I said, a strange, cold calm settling over me. Why did you even get the tickets? What? Oh, well, we fully intended to come, Elena, you know that, but this spa weekend. It was a last-minute, non-refundable booking Chloe found, and it was just such a good deal, and it was the only weekend they had. It was just, bad timing. Bad timing. My graduation was bad timing. And Dad? I asked. Oh, he's right here. I heard her pass the phone over. Elena, proud of you, kiddo, my father's voice rumbled, distant and awkward. Big day. You thought a spa was more important, I said. Now listen, he started, his voice shifting into that placating, don't make your mother unhappy tone. Your mother and sister needed a break. You're an adult now. You know how these things go. We'll see you tomorrow. Before I could say another word, the line clicked. He had hung up. I sat in the dark, the silence of my apartment amplifying the ringing in my ears. They hadn't apologized. They hadn't even felt guilty. They had justified it, minimized my feelings, and moved on. The big dinner they promised would be all about them, about how they were celebrating me, absolving themselves of any wrongdoing over a $50 plate of pasta. I thought about the last 6 years, the sacrifices, the casual, constant preference for Chloe. This wasn't a single event, it was a pattern. And a deep, structural flaw in the foundation of our family. And as an architect, I knew all about structural flaws. You can patch them, you can paint over them, but eventually, the building will fail. I got up and went to my desk, my reflection a pale oval in the dark window. I opened my laptop and pulled up my personal finances, the spreadsheets I kept meticulously. I looked at my student loans, my savings, my budget for my new junior architect job that started in 2 weeks. Then I opened a separate folder, one I rarely looked at. It was an inheritance from my grandmother, my father's mother, a stern, quiet woman who had always looked at me with an unnerving, knowing gaze. She had left her small, paid-off duplex in a transitioning neighborhood to me, and only me, in an ironclad trust that I gained full control of on my 23rd birthday, which was last month. My parents knew about it, of course, but they'd always dismissed it. Oh, that old thing, Margaret would say. The taxes must be a nightmare. You should just let your father handle it. But I hadn't. I'd read the fine print. I'd met with the lawyer. I knew exactly what it was worth. It was my safety net, my escape plan. They always saw me as the reliable one, the one who would just understand. They had forgotten about Grandma's gift. They had forgotten I was the one who read the fine print. I closed the laptop, the cold calm still settled in my chest. I wouldn't go to the celebration dinner. I wouldn't text them. I wouldn't call. I would just stop. Stop being the capable one. Stop being the one who understands. Let's see how long it took for them to notice. The big dinner text came the next day. Tuscany Grill at 7, be there? I didn't reply. At 7:15 my phone buzzed. Running late. At 7:45 a call, I let it go to voicemail. Elena, this is ridiculous. We're here. We ordered you an appetizer. Call me. Margaret's voice was tight with annoyance. At 8:30, a final text from Chloe. Wow, way to ruin your own party. Mom's mad. The silence that followed was glorious. It lasted for 2 weeks. In those 2 weeks, I started my new job at a prestigious firm. I moved into a new, smaller apartment closer to my office, using the first month's rent from my grandmother's duplex to cover the deposit. I was good at my job. My bosses were impressed with my portfolio. I worked late, I learned fast, and for the first time in my life, I felt valued. My capability was an asset, not an expectation. The call finally came on a Saturday morning. It was Margaret. Her tone wasn't angry, it was confused, as if she'd tried to use a credit card and it had been unexpectedly declined. Elena, darling, we haven't heard from you. We were worried. I've been busy, I said, sipping my coffee and looking over some blueprints. I started my job. Oh, wonderful, but you didn't answer about dinner. We were very hurt. I was sick, Mom, and then I was busy moving. Moving? Why would you move? You had a perfectly good apartment. I wanted a change. There was a huff of exasperated air. This was not going according to her script. Well, your sister needs you. She's having a terrible time with her roommate and she needs to break her lease, but she's worried about the penalty. I thought you, being so good with contracts and fine print. There it was, the ask. I wasn't a daughter, I was a resource. I'm not a lawyer, Mom. She should read her lease. Alina, don't be difficult. This is your sister. Family helps family. You've always been so devoted. That was the word she always used, devoted. It wasn't loved. It was devoted, like a servant or a dog. I am devoted, Mom, I said, my voice quiet. I was devoted to my studies. I was devoted to getting my master's. I was devoted to the idea that my family would be proud of me. We are proud, she insisted. Proud enough to show up. The line went silent. I had finally said it. The one thing I wasn't supposed to say. The ugly, inconvenient truth. I told you, she sputtered. Chloe needed. I needed you too, I said, and the simple truth of it almost buckled my knees. I was sick. I was alone, and you were getting mud baths. This is very unfair, Alina. You're trying to make us feel guilty. After all we've done for you. What have you done for me, Mom? Lately, you funded Chloe's life. I funded mine. I paid for my own master's application fees. I paid for my own books. I worked 20 hours a week at the architecture library while Chloe was flying to Cancun for spring break on your dime. Chloe is different, she cried, her voice rising to a shrill pitch. She's sensitive. She doesn't have your toughness. The world is harder for girls like her. You're smart, you're capable. It's just easier for you. No, Mom, I said, the cold calm from graduation night returning, solidifying into steel. It's not easier for me. You just made it harder. You and Dad, Ademi carry my own weight, and Chloe's too. I could hear her breathing, sharp and angry. I could picture her perfectly, standing in her pristine white kitchen, one hand on her hip, her face pinched. Chloe was probably at the table, painting her nails, listening with lazy interest. I don't know who this new, cold person is, Alina, but I don't like her, Margaret said, her voice dripping with venom. I'm not new, Mom. I'm just finished. I'm finished being the capable one. I'm finished understanding. From now on, I'm just going to be me, and me is very busy. What does that mean? She demanded. It means don't ask me to read Chloe's lease. Don't ask me for legal advice or financial advice or to fix your printer. I'm not your on-call problem solver anymore. Fine, she shrieked. Be that way, but don't come crying to us when you need your family. I won't, I said. Goodbye, Mom. I hung up. My hand was shaking. I had done it. I had finally actually cut the cord. The backlash would be terrible. My father would call, disappointed. My aunts and uncles would be mobilized, told some sob story about how I had abandoned my sensitive sister. But as I looked around my new apartment, at the blueprints for the project I was managing, at the diploma I had framed and hung on my own wall, I didn't feel scared. I felt free. Chloe, as it turned out, was the embodiment of this family dynamic. She was pretty, polished, and profoundly empty. Her entire life had been curated by my mother to be a series of effortless wins. When she failed a class, my parents hired a tutor and complained to the professor. When she got a speeding ticket, my father paid the fine and spoke to a guy to get the points erased. Her main profession was being effortlessly charming, a skill she'd honed to a razor's edge. She could disarm you with a bright smile, a perfectly timed compliment, and then in the next breath ask for something outrageous. Her interest in my life was always pointed, always focused on what I had that she could use. My car, my professional camera, my connections. This time, they wanted my help, my taste. They had no idea that the one thing I'd been building, all on my own, was a new life. And in this new life, the family helps family sign had been taken down for good. The silence lasted for almost a year. A full, blissful, productive year. In that year, I was promoted from junior architect to project manager. My boss, a formidable woman named Cynthia, had taken me under her wing. She was all sharp angles and sharper insights, and she didn't tolerate excuses. She respected results. Under her mentorship, I thrived. My grandmother's duplex, which my parents had dismissed as that old thing, turned out to be a goldmine. The neighborhood was gentrifying, and I managed the renovations myself, turning the second unit into a high-end rental. The income, combined with my salary, made me comfortable. For the first time in my life, I wasn't just surviving, I was building wealth. I built a new family, too. A circle of friends from work and my old grad program. We had potlucks, went hiking, and celebrated each other's wins. When I closed on my first investment property, a small condo I planned to flip, they threw me a congratulations party with cheap champagne and a cake shaped like a house. It was more celebration than my own family had ever given me. The old world, my parents, my sister, faded into the background. I heard about them in fragments from my cousins. Chloe, she bounced between 3 majors, racked up an impressive amount of credit card debt, which my parents dutifully paid, and had developed a new, all-consuming passion, her image. Then the prodigal family returned. It was a Sunday. I was at my desk, sketching out a design for a cantilevered balcony when my phone rang. Mom. I stared at the name. It had been a year. My first instinct was to ignore it, but a cold curiosity, the kind an engineer feels before stress testing a weld, made me answer. Hello. Elena, oh Elena, darling, it's so good to hear your voice. My mother's voice was a tidal wave of artificial sweetness. It was the voice she used on bank managers and restaurant hosts when she wanted an upgrade. Hi, Mom, what's wrong? Wrong, nothing's wrong. Can't a mother just call her daughter, I've missed you? The lie was so blatant, it was almost impressive. You've had my number for a year, Mom, I said, leaning back in my chair. I know, and I'm sorry, Elena, I truly am. Your father and I, we handled that whole graduation thing terribly. We were wrong. Chloe was. Well, you know Chloe, but we're older now. Wiser. This was new, a script I hadn't heard, an apology. It was a strategic move, and I waited for the other shoe to drop. It's just that. Well, Chloe is finally getting her act together. She's decided to transfer to a wonderful art history P. Ragram, it's time for her to leave the nest, to finally grow up, and we want to send her off in style. There it was, the other shoe. We want to throw her a huge college send-off party, Margaret gushed. A real you're an adult now kind of event. And Chloe, well, she has her heart set on one place. It's called the Willow Creek Conservatory. Have you heard of it? My pen stopped moving. Heard of it? I practically lived there for 3 months. The Willow Creek Conservatory, I said, my voice carefully neutral, is a historically landmarked building. The restoration was completed 2 years ago. Yes, exactly. It's stunning, all that glass and ironwork. Chloe saw it on an influencer's Instagram, and now she just has to have it. The problem is, well, they're very exclusive. They won't even return my calls. I smiled. Of course they wouldn't. The conservatory wasn't a party hall. It was an architectural masterpiece. It was managed by the city's historical society, and its director, Dr. Alastair Finch, was a notoriously prickly man who cared more about 19th century joinery than he did about Instagram influencers. And Alina, honey, my mother continued, her voice dropping into a conspiratorial whisper, you're an architect now, a big, important project manager. You have such taste. You know people. We were hoping. Well, we were hoping you could. Handle it. Handle it? Just make the calls, book the venue, handle the logistics. You're so good at logistics. It would mean the world to Chloe. It would mean the world to us. A real chance for us to come together again, as a family. The audacity was breathtaking. After a year of silence, they weren't just asking for forgiveness, they were asking for a favor. A massive, expensive, time-consuming favor. A slow, cold, brilliant idea began to form in my mind. It was a blueprint, intricate and precise. Mom, I said, my voice softening, I don't know. Oh, please, Alina, it would be the first step. A way to heal things. Chloe is desperate. She said she can't get inspired for her new life without this party. I can't get inspired. The sheer, unadulterated entitlement. The conservatory is very difficult to book, I said, stalling. And Dr. Finch, the director, he's particular. But he'd listen to you, Margaret pressed. A fellow professional, an architect, not just some mom. She had no idea. Dr. Finch hadn't just been a professor in my grad program, he had been my thesis advisor. The Willow Creek Conservatory was my thesis. I had spent an entire summer interning on the restoration, personally sourcing the reclaimed cast-iron brackets for the mezzanine. Dr. Finch didn't just know me, he was my mentor. I might be able to make a call, I said. No promises. Oh, Alina, thank you, thank you. She was almost weeping with relief. Whatever it costs, just book it all, get the best of everything. This is Chloe's moment. The trap was set. My hand was on the lever. Okay, Mom, I said, my voice full of the capability she'd always relied on. I'll handle everything. I hung up the phone and pulled up a new file on my computer. I opened my contacts and found the number for Dr. Finch. Then I opened my personal trust account. I was going to plan my sister the most incredible, extravagant, unforgettable party. A party she had always dreamed of. And I was going to pay for it all myself. The first step was a phone call to Dr. Finch. Alina, he boomed through the phone, his voice as warm and resonant as the old growth what he so loved. How is my star pupil? Are you finally convincing that firm of yours to use historically accurate lime mortar? Working on it, Dr. Finch, I laughed. Listen, I have a somewhat unusual request. For you, anything. You're the only intern who ever managed to catalog the archival blueprints without crying. I need to book the conservatory. He sighed. Oh, Alina, please don't tell me you're starting a lifestyle brand. We're overrun. We've had 3 different influencers try to stage a fake wedding here this month alone. Nothing like that, I promise. It's personal. I want to host a private gala. A professional achievement and gratitude event, I'm calling it, to thank all the mentors and colleagues, like you, who supported me through my master's. A gratitude gala? My dear girl, that's the most civilized thing I've heard all year. Of course, take any date you want, it's yours. No charge for the venue, naturally. Consider it a long overdue graduation present. I felt a pang of guilt. Dr. Finch, that's too generous. I can't accept that. Nonsense. The board has a community engagement fund for exactly this. You're a credit to the architectural community. Just promise me there will be no confetti. Not a single piece, I promised. But Dr. Finch, there's one more thing. The event is sensitive. I'd like to handle all the vendors and logistics myself, and I need all communication to go through me. Only me. Can your staff be discreet? Discreet? Alina, my staff handles the egos of museum donors on a daily basis. We are fortresses of discretion. You're the client, you're in charge. Now, what's the date? I gave him the date, the Saturday before Chloe was supposed to leave for her new school. Step 1 complete, the venue was secured, and it was free. Step 2 was the investigation. I called my mother back. Okay, Mom, I've pulled some strings. It was hard, but I have a provisional hold on the date. Now I need everything. Chloe's dream list. Every vendor, every detail. Dr. Finch is particular. He insists on approving the entire vision, and he'll only deal with me. Margaret was ecstatic. Oh, Alina, you're a miracle worker. I'll have Chloe email you her vision board. The email I received an hour later was a masterpiece of entitlement. It was a 20-page PowerPoint presentation titled Chloe's College Kickoff, the Willow Creek Send-Off. It had everything: a champagne tower, a specific, wildly expensive caterer, a DJ who was huge on TikTok, a flower wall for photos, a custom-designed theme, monarch butterflies for spreading her wings, even a link to the exact 300 sequin gown she intended to wear. It was gaudy, overpriced, and utterly Chloe. And I booked all of it. I called the caterer. Yes, I'd like to book the Grand Connoisseur package. Yes, the one with the champagne tower and the ice sculpture. The event is for Ms. Alina Rosso. I called the DJ. I called the florist. I called the rental company for the couture lounge furniture. I put down massive, non-refundable deposits on my personal credit card, the one linked to my trust account. I signed every contract with my name, Elena Russo. The plan was solidifying. This was no longer just a party. It was a statement. 2 weeks before the event, my mother called, her voice tight with a new kind of anxiety. "Elena, honey, I was just calling the caterer to discuss. You know, the vegetarian options for your Aunt Susan, and they said they have no record of a party for Chloe. They said the event is for you. That's just a mistake, right? A mix-up." The first confrontation, it was time. "No, Mom," I said calmly, sipping my tea. "It's not a mistake. The contract is in my name. I'm the one paying the deposits." There was a stunned silence. You're paying, Elena, we were going to pay, thousands of dollars. "It is," I agreed. "About 20,000 so far, but don't worry, I've got it covered." "But how?" The question was a squeak. My parents lived comfortably, but they weren't drop 20K on a party rich. They lived on my father's salary and a mountain of carefully managed credit. The idea of me, capable little Elena, having that kind of liquid cash was outside their entire worldview. "Grandma's trust," I said, the words tasting sweet. "It matured on my 23rd birthday, remember? The duplex is doing very well. You always said it was just an old thing, but it's quite profitable." I could hear her brain whirring, trying to process this. On the one hand, her annoying, ungrateful daughter was paying for the whole thing. On the other, this meant I had money she didn't know about, money I hadn't given her. "Well, that's wonderful, honey," she said, her voice strained. "So generous of you to do this for your sister." "Oh no," I said. "You're still confused. I'm not doing this for Chloe, I'm doing this for me." What are you talking about?" "This is the party I never got. The celebration for my graduation, the one you missed. I'm just using Chloe's vision board because, well, why not? She has expensive taste, and I can afford it." The line went so quiet, I could hear the faint buzz of the connection. She finally understood, or at least she was beginning to. "Elena, that's not funny," she whispered. "I'm not joking, Mom. I've booked the venue, I've paid the caterer, I've hired the DJ, and I've sent out the invitations. But, Chloe's friends, we haven't invited anyone." "Don't worry," I said, my voice bright. "My guest list is already finalized. Dr. Finch, my boss, Cynthia, the entire team from my firm, all those cousins who actually called me after I graduated. It's going to be a wonderful night. I'm so glad you're all coming to celebrate me." You can't," she sputtered. "This is Chloe's party, we'll sue you." I laughed, a real, genuine laugh. "Sue me? For what? For throwing myself a party? For paying for it with my money? You're the ones who asked me to handle it. And I have. The contracts are in my name. The money is from my account. It's my party." Chloe, who had clearly been listening on speaker, let out a sound like a tea kettle boiling over. "You're a monster," she shrieked. "That's my C. Hampegny Tower, my flower wall, you stole my party." "Stole it," I replied, my voice turning to ice. "That's rich, coming from the girl whose spa weekend stole my graduation. You can't steal something that was never yours, Chloe. You just provided the inspiration, and for that, thank you." I hung up. I clicked send on the final batch of e-invitations. The subject line, "You're invited, an evening of gratitude and new beginnings." The trap wasn't just set, the door was shut. The week leading up to the party was a symphony of chaos, and I was its silent, smiling conductor. My phone blew up. First, it was my mother, leaving a string of increasingly hysterical voicemails. They careened wildly from "Elena, you are breaking this family apart," to "Honey, let's just talk about this, we can compromise," and my personal favorite, "Your father is very disappointed in your lack of couth." Then came my father, the passive enabler, finally roused to action. "Elena," his voicemail began, his voice heavy with forced gravitas. This stunt is deeply immature. You are hurting your sister. You are embarrassing your mother. Whatever point you think you're making, you've made it. Now be a good girl, call the vendors, and put your sister's name on the event." He, too, was met with silence. Chloe, predictably, took to social media. She didn't name me, of course. She posted a tearful, black-and-white video to her Instagram story. "Just feeling so betrayed right now," she whispered, a single tear tracing a perfect, glittery path down her cheek. "You think you know people, and then they just take your entire dream from you. Pray for me." It was all so predictable. They were so used to me being the capable one, the one who absorbed their drama and quietly fixed their problems, that they had no idea how to handle strategic Alina. They thought this was a tantrum. They didn't realize it was a demolition. Meanwhile, I was building my case. My invitations had been met with overwhelming enthusiasm. My colleagues were thrilled. My mentors, like Dr. Finch and Cynthia, were touched. My distant relatives, the ones who had been sidelined by my mother's, Chloe first, agenda for years, were ecstatic. "It's about time, Alina," my Aunt Rosa, my grandmother's sister, boomed over the phone. "That matter of yours has been running the show for too long. I'll be there with bells on, and I'm bringing my famous flan." The case wasn't just about my feelings. It was about hard, cold facts. I had the receipts, all of them. The final confrontation happened, as I knew it must, in person. It was the day before the party. I was at the conservatory, doing a final walkthrough with the florist. We were discussing the precise shade of coral for the lounge pillows when the glass doors of the atrium burst open. In marched the unholy trinity: Margaret, David, and Chloe. Chloe was in full tragic heroine mode, wearing dark sunglasses indoors and dabbing at her perfectly dry eyes with a tissue. Margaret looked like a general whose army had deserted. My father just looked tired. "Alina," my mother's voice was low and dangerous. "Stop this now." The florist, a lovely man named Marco, looked at me with wide, alarmed eyes. "Marco, this is my family," I said calmly. "Could you give us a moment? And just a reminder, let's stick to the white and gold for the monarch butterfly ice sculpture. The rendering Chloe made was just a little tacky." Chloe gasped, as if I had physically struck her. Marco nodded, white and gold. Elegant got it and scurried away. "How dare you," Margaret hissed, marching right up to me. "How dare you humiliate us like this?" "I'm not humiliating you, Mom. You're doing a wonderful job of that all on your own." "This is my party," Chloe shrieked, ripping off her sunglasses. Her eyes were red, but from crying or rage, it was hard to tell. "You tricked us. You used my vision board." "I did," I agreed, checking my watch. "And it was very helpful, though your taste in DJs is questionable, but I hired him anyway. He's very excited." "Alina, this is enough," my father said, stepping forward. "You've had your fun, you've made your point. Now we are here to take over the contracts. We'll reimburse you for the deposits. This party is for Chloe." I smiled. It was time to present the irrefutable proof. "Reimburse me? Oh, Dad, you can't." "Don't be ridiculous. I'll write you a check right now." "You can't," I repeated, "because you can't afford it. And even if you could, the contracts are non-transferable. I'm the client, Ms. Alina Rosso." "We'll see about that," Margaret snapped, pulling out her phone. "I'll call the caterer myself and tell them what?" I interrupted. "That the woman who paid them in full 2 days ago isn't the real client, that the actual clients are the ones who haven't paid, who couldn't pay." I walked over to my briefcase, which I'd set on a bistro table. I pulled out a single-page document. "This," I said, "is the final, itemized invoice. Total cost, $28,450. I paid it from my trust account. The one Grandma left me. The one you told me to let your father handle." My father's face went ashen. He knew their financial situation. He knew they couldn't write that check without leveraging their house. But, Chloe was the one who was truly breaking. The reality was crashing in on her. "It's not fair." "No," I said, turning to her. "It's not. It wasn't fair that I worked 2 jobs to pay for my tuition while you went to Cancun. It wasn't fair that I studied for my finals in a hospital waiting room while Dad had his minor surgery, while you and Mom were in Paris. And it really wasn't fair that I sat alone, sick with the flu, at my own master's graduation, while you and Mom got mud baths. The atrium was silent. My father wouldn't meet my eyes. My mother's face was a mask of cold fury. "This isn't just a party, Chloe," I said, my voice quiet but echoing in the huge glass space. "This is a consequence. This is the bill coming due. You've all been living on my capability for my entire life. You've been dining out on my understanding. Well, the bank is closed. The account is empty." "So you're not going to let us in?" Chloe whispered, her voice a child's. "Oh no," I said. "You're all invited. In fact, I'm counting on you to be here." My mother looked up, suspicion in her eyes. "What?" "Be here tomorrow night, 7 p.m., dressed to the nines. I wouldn't want you to miss it." I picked up my briefcase, straightened my jacket, and walked past them. You're letting us come," my father called after me, a pathetic note of hope in his voice. I stopped at the door and looked back. "I'm not letting you come," I said. "I'm expecting you. After all, what's a party without a main event?" They didn't understand. They thought it was a concession, an olive branch. They still had no idea what I was capable of. The night of the party, I felt a calm I hadn't felt in my entire life. I had spent the afternoon at a spa, a real one, not the cut-rate resort Chloe and my mother had frequented. I'd had a massage, a manicure, and my hair and makeup professionally done. I wore a custom-made gown in a deep, architectural emerald green. It was elegant, powerful, and cost more than my first car. I arrived at the conservatory at 6:30 p.m. It was breathtaking. Marco the florist had outdone himself. The atrium was filled with white orchids and elegant gold accents. The monarch butterfly, ice sculpture, was a glistening, abstract masterpiece. The lounge furniture was arranged in intimate, sophisticated pods. The DJ was playing a surprisingly tasteful ambient set, and in the center of it all, the champagne tower waited, a pyramid of shimmering crystal. My guests began to arrive. Dr. Finch, looking dapper in a velvet blazer, kissed my hand. "Elena, my dear, you've saved this building. It's never looked so beautiful." Cynthia, my boss, arrived with her husband, handed me a bottle of 30-year-old scotch, and said, "Russo, good. You're finally learning to spend your money on things other than antique drafting tools." My Aunt Rosa arrived with a phalanx of cousins, her flan held high like a trophy. "She's here, the queen. Look at you, Mija. You look like your grandmother." The room filled with laughter, with congratulations, with people who were there unequivocally for me. It was overwhelming. At 7:15 p.m., they arrived. I saw them through the glass doors, Margaret, David, and Chloe. They were, as I'd instructed, dressed to the nines. Chloe was in her 300 sequined dream gown. Margaret wore a stiff mother-of-the-bride dress. My father was in his best suit. They looked like a perfect, happy family. They marched to the front door, where I had stationed 2 professional, very large security guards. I'd also hired a lovely young woman named Anya to manage the guest list on a tablet. I watched from the mezzanine as they approached. "We're here for the party," Margaret announced, her voice a little too loud. Anya, the clipboard manager, smiled brightly. "Wonderful, and what's the name?" "Russo, of course. I'm Margaret Russo. This is my husband, David, and my daughter, Chloe. We're the guests of honor." Anya tapped on her tablet. Her smile didn't waver. I'm sorry, I don't have a Margaret, David, or Chloe Russo on the list." "What?" Margaret's voice cracked. "That's ridiculous. This is our party. Elena." She had spotted me. I smiled, waved, and began my descent down the grand, cast-iron staircase. Every eye in the room turned. The music softened. I felt like the star of my own movie. "Mom, Dad, Chloe," I said, my voice amplified just slightly by the atrium's perfect acoustics. "You're here. Wonderful. I was so worried you wouldn't come." "Elena, what is the meaning of this?" my father demanded, his face turning a dangerous Shah. Duov read as he saw the security guards. Tell this young woman to let us in." "Oh," I said, feigning confusion. "But you're not on the list." "That's not funny, Alina," Chloe snapped. "This is my dress, my theme, you can't just not let me in." "I can," I said, my voice hardening. "Because, as I've explained, this is my party, paid for by my money, at a venue I secured, to celebrate my graduation." I turned to the assembled guests, who were watching with rapt attention. "Everyone," I called out, my voice clear and strong. "Thank you all for coming. As you know, I called this a gratitude gala, and I meant it. I wanted to thank all of you, my friends, my mentors, my real family, for supporting me. A year ago, I graduated with my master's degree. It was a big day for me, but my immediate family, Margaret, David, and Chloe here, couldn't make it." A murmur went through the crowd. Aunt Rosa crossed her arms, nodding slowly. "You see," I continued, "they had something very important to do. Chloe, my sister, was so stressed before her freshman year finals that my parents took her on a spa weekend instead." The murmur turned into a collective, scandalized gasp. Dr. Finch looked positively thunderous. "For a year," I said, looking right at my mother, "I have waited for an apology, an acknowledgement, anything. Instead, a year later they called me, not to apologize, but to ask me to plan this party, Chloe's dream send-off. They wanted me to use my taste, my connections, my capability, to give them this." I gestured to the beautiful room. "And so I did," I said. "I used my connections to get the venue. I used my money, the money from the grandmother they ignored, to pay for it all. I used Chloe's vision board to plan it, and I invited everyone who actually matters to me." "Alina," my father pleaded, his voice breaking, "don't do this." "Do what, Dad? Tell the truth? You taught me that actions have consequences. This is a consequence. You all taught me that family is just a word you use to get something. Well, I'm learning to use it too, and my family is in this room. You are not." Chloe finally broke. It wasn't the slow, tragic heroine tear. It was an ugly, gulping, furious sob. You ruined my life. I'll never be able to show my face again." "You'll be fine," I said, my voice flat. "Mom and Dad will buy you a new party. They always do." I turned to my mother. Her face was white, her eyes full of a hatred so pure it was almost beautiful. This isn't over, Elena," she whispered. "Oh, yes, it is," I said. I turned to the security guard. "Anya, my name is Alina Rosso. These 3 people are Margaret, David, and Chloe Rosso. They are not on my list. They are trespassing." The guard stepped forward. "Ma'am, sir, you'll have to leave." They just stood there, stunned, defeated. As the guard gently but firmly began to escort them out, I turned back to my guests. I picked up a glass of champagne from a passing waiter. I raised my glass. "To new beginnings," I said, "and to finally being understood." The room erupted in applause. As I saw my family's silhouettes disappear through the glass doors, I turned, walked to the champagne tower, and poured the first glass. It was the sweetest drink I'd ever tasted. The party was, by all accounts, legendary. We danced, we ate. Aunt Rose's flan was gone in 10 minutes. Cynthia and Dr. Finch got into a deeply nerdy and very loud debate about brutalist architecture. My colleagues saw a new side of me, and I saw a new side of them. For the first time, I wasn't capable Alina or responsible Alina. I was just Alina, and I was having the time of my life. The fallout, of course, began the next morning. My mother, true to form, had launched a smear campaign. She called every relative she could, painting a picture of a cold, cruel, and clearly unstable daughter who had stolen her sister's party and humiliated her aging parents. It backfired spectacularly. "Elena," came the call from my Uncle Mark. "Your mother just called me, said you threw a party and kicked her out." "That's about the gist of it, Uncle Mark," I said, bracing myself. He was silent for a moment. Then he roared with laughter. "Good for you, kid. It's about time someone put Margaret in her place. She's been insufferable for 30 years. Your grandmother, God rest her." always said you were the only one in that house with a steel spine. I guess she was right. The consensus was the same. Aunt Rosa had already poisoned the well with the truth, and my mother's hysterics only confirmed what everyone had quietly thought for years, that Chloe was spoiled and that my parents were fools. The downfall for my family wasn't public and fiery, it was quiet and devastating. Chloe's friends, who had all seen her tearful Instagram posts, had been expecting to see pictures of the Willow Creek party when none appeared, and when pictures from my party, # gratitude gala, the questions started. The truth in bits and pieces got out. Chloe wasn't betrayed. She was entitled. Her dream send-off became a joke. Her actual send-off, I heard, was a sad backyard barbecue with a few of Margaret's friends, all of whom, I'm sure, were deeply concerned for me. My father sent me a single text. "I'm sorry, your mother, she's just, well, I'm sorry." It was the first and only apology I'd ever received from him. It was weak, it was passive, it was him. I didn't reply. The final piece of justice came a week later. I received a certified letter from the Willow Creek Conservatory. It wasn't from Dr. Finch, it was from their legal department. It was a bill for $2,500. It was for additional security services rendered, specifically for the time and manpower required to manage and remove non-ticketed, disruptive individuals from a private event. They had also, at my request, included damages to landscaping, as apparently my mother had knocked over a very expensive potted olive tree in her fury. I smiled. I paid the bill, of course. Then I forwarded a copy of the paid invoice to my father's email address, my professional network at work. The subject line was blank. I never heard if they paid me back. I didn't care. That month, I used the last of my grandmother's trust and the profits from my first condo flip to put a down payment on my own home. It wasn't a duplex. It was a stunning, light-filled loft in a converted warehouse, all exposed brick and original steel beams. It was a mess, but it was my mess. The story ends with me 6 months later in that loft. The renovations are almost done. I'm sitting on a concrete floor, my blueprints for my life spread out around me. My phone buzzes. It's not my family. It's my friends wondering when my housewarming is.